Our President Obama was in New York City today, surveying damage from Hurricane Sandy, who was alongside New York Governor Andrew Cuomo and New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg. In the immediate aftermath of the storm, you might remember the president spent time in New Jersey alongside Governor Chris Christie. At that time, Mayor Bloomberg of New York had specifically asked the president to please not come to New York City so the logistics and security arrangements around his visit wouldn't get in the way of the immediate recovery effort. But now, with 2 weeks or so gone by, the president today announced that he is putting a cabinet official, a housing secretary, in charge of the federal level of the rebuilding efforts after the storm. And he made that announcement from hard-hit Staten Island.
During difficult times like this, we're reminded that we're bound together and we have to look out for each other. And a lot of the things that seem important, the petty differences, melt away, and we focus on what binds us together, and that we as Americans are going to stand with each other in their hour of need. We're going to have to put some of the turf battles aside. We're going to have to make sure that everybody's focused on doing the job as opposed to worrying about who's getting the credit or who's getting the contracts or all that stuff that sometimes goes into the rebuilding process.
That was what happened today in presidential politics in storm-damaged New York. But if the president's message in New York was one of buckling down and cooperating and working together to get things done, what happened in Washington today was a study in contrast from that.
The president himself has intentionally misinformed, read that, lied to the American people in the aftermath of this tragedy. This is not simply a cover-up of a third-rate burglary. We have 4 of our diplomatic personnel dead.
This administration continues to put out things that are just not quite true.
Well, if you want to know who is responsible in this town, buy yourself a mirror. Our evil-doing, American citizen-hating administration requested a lot more money than we provided. $250 million in security upgrades that you refused to make in this committee. And then you have the audacity to come here and say, why wasn't the protection of these people provided for? And the answer is because you damn didn't provide it.
The election was over. The president won re-election. The voices of the public were heard. They want us to cooperate. If you want an honest investigation of this tragedy, we will join you. But if you want to persist in trying somehow to put this, lay this at the doorstep of the president or the Secretary of State or the United Nations ambassador, you will find us ready and willing to resist to the teeth.
To the teeth. That's what it was like today at the House Foreign Affairs Committee's hearing on the attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya, back in September. There were also hearings on the same subject today in both the House and Senate Intelligence Committees, but those were both closed to the public. We learned today that newly resigned CIA Chief David Petraeus has agreed to testify at a closed Senate Intelligence Committee hearing tomorrow, and maybe a closed House hearing, too. In his first remarks to a reporter since he resigned, General Petraeus apparently told Kira Phillips, an anchor from Headline News, that his resignation was strictly about him having an extramarital affair, and it was nothing to do with anything related to classified information or to Benghazi. He told Kira Phillips that he is therefore eager to testify in Congress about the Benghazi issue in order to clear that up. That is related, presumably, to the conspiracy theories about General Petraeus' resignation that increasingly are populating the conservative media right now. Quote, "It's obvious that someone was out to silence Petraeus." Quote, "In the modern era, office holders with forgiving spouses simply do not resign from powerful jobs because of a temporary non-criminal consensual adult sexual liaison," said Eliot Spitzer. I mean, Anthony Weiner. I mean, Jim McGreevey. I mean, Congressman Mark Souter. I mean, the Detroit police chief. I mean, sorry, none of them. It was said by a person named Andrew Napolitano, who was a Fox News personality. David Petraeus' resignation to him could not possibly have just been about some dumb affair. Nobody resigns from office for having an affair. There must be a leftist government cover-up going on. The White House is trying to keep General Petraeus from spilling the beans about some vague, imagined government conspiracy surrounding the Benghazi attacks. That's what Napolitano is saying. The conservative columnist and commentator Charles Krauthammer is pushing the same sort of idea now, too. But honestly, the engine that is and has been driving the crazy on this issue for the Republican Party and the conservative movement, it's still really Senator John McCain. Over the past week, Senator John McCain has made 6 different television appearances just to talk about the Benghazi attack and what he sees as the big Obama administration cover-up of that attack, making his case over and over and over and over and over again to any blinking red light within sight about how Benghazi should not be viewed as an attack on a U.S. consulate, but instead it should be viewed as a Democratic lie, an Obama scandal. The Senate needs more information about this blatant cover-up, says John McCain. John McCain needs more information. This, for example, is John McCain convening a press conference yesterday morning denouncing the scandal that Congress is not being given enough information about this horrible scandal that he can't get any answers on. While John McCain was demanding answers at this press conference that he convened yesterday morning, some of his colleagues from a committee that he is a member of were getting answers on the subject that he was so mad about. John McCain was missing a 3-hour, high-level, closed, classified briefing on what exactly happened in Benghazi from representatives of the State Department and the Defense Department and the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the National Counterterrorism Center and the FBI. John McCain did not get any of that classified briefing. He did not get any of that information. He didn't get any of his questions answered by any of those people because he skipped the briefing and instead went and yelled at TV cameras about how he couldn't get any information. And when a CNN producer had the good sense to ask Senator McCain about why he was yelling about not getting information instead of attending the briefing on his committee where the information was being given out, then he just yelled some more.
Our Ted Barrett caught up with the senator earlier today and wanted to know why he didn't go to that briefing. And to say the least, it did not go well. Listen to what happened.
Senator, I have no comment. And who the hell are you to tell me where I can or not? I'm asking you a question. And I'm giving you an answer for the 10th time.
Who the hell are you? This is all going on while John McCain continues to try to make a case that this scandal that he can't get any information about can't be handled through the normal committee process, that he can't get enough information that way. So instead, John McCain says there needs to be a Watergate-style mega investigation. So far, that idea has been shot down by the Republican Speaker of the House, John Boehner, by John McCain's own BFF in the Senate, Joe Lieberman. He also disagrees with Mr. McCain on this. Same goes for Susan Collins of Maine, who did go to that classified briefing yesterday and who noted publicly that John McCain was not there, even though it was his committee. McCain's special investigation idea was also shot down today by Republican Senator Richard Burr, who said, quote, "I think you've got to allow the structure we have of oversight to function. And I think that the Intelligence Committee is more than capable of handling this." In other words, the Senate is getting information, so maybe we should, get information instead of continuing to scream on TV about not getting information. Here's how you know when somebody is being disingenuous. It's when they demand something, and then you give them that thing that they just keep demanding about, and they pretend that you're not giving it to them, and they just keep making the demand anyway, as if it hasn't been met. John McCain obviously sees some advantage somewhere in continuing to scream on TV about the fact that he is not getting information about this issue. When that screaming cannot be quieted by actually giving him information about this issue, that is a sign that something else is going on here. Joining us now is Josh Rogan, staff writer at Foreign Policy Magazine, where he writes the daily column, The Cable. Josh, thanks very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
President Obama, yesterday at his press conference, basically accused John McCain of grandstanding, of trying to gin up this tragedy into something that he and the Republicans can get political gain from. How did that play out today with John McCain and the way the rest of Congress is viewing him on this?
Right. So you've been covering this well in the sense that Republicans are not used to the Obama administration pushing back. They're not used to the Obama coming with the fire in the belly and really confronting them on accusations and insinuations that they've been launching for the last 4 years without a lot of resistance, without a lot of contradiction. Let's remember that the politicization of the Benghazi issue started with the Mitt Romney campaign. On the night of the attack, he then harangued the entire Republican caucus into joining him on that. And now the Mitt Romney campaign is gone, leaving guys like John McCain holding the bag. So he's pot committed to this strategy, and he's got to go forward. And now that President Obama has called him out on public television during a press conference, he has no choice but to double down. And stories like these, where he missed the hearing that he was calling for, undermine his argument that the Obama administration is not giving him enough information, and pushes him back into the argument that the Obama administration is lying or misrepresenting or intentionally politicizing the tragedy. And that's a much tougher argument to make, and that's the fight the Obama administration wants to have. So John McCain's really on his heels.
And in that point about which argument the Obama administration wants to have, I mean, the thing that tripped up Mitt Romney on this in that debate is that he believed what conservative media had been saying about this, right? He believed some conservative meme that President Obama never used the word terror when he described this attack, when in fact the president had, and it led to that horrible fact-checking moment, live fact-checking in the debate. Is John McCain and these guys, Dana Rohrabacher and Gene Schmidt, these other people who we just played tape from, who are trying to make this into a political scandal, are they still making that same mistake in that they are pursuing a narrative that is circulating on the right, but that isn't based in fact?
Yes, I would add Darrell Issa to that. He held the first hearings on Benghazi a month before the election, and he bungled them. And he basically revealed the names of sources of Libyans working with the United States by releasing documents without even checking with anyone. And the bottom line here is that there were legitimate questions about the Benghazi attack, and there's a lot of information we haven't gotten. But that's all become secondary to the sort of political fight between the Republicans in Congress, who want to assert that they still have the control of the foreign policy issue, and they want to assert that Obama's weak on foreign policy even though the election is over, and the actual responsible lawmakers who want to actually just figure out what happened and what we can do to prevent it from happening again.
The way this is going, are we likely to get a giant Watergate-style mega investigation on this, the way John McCain has been demanding?
There's no appetite for that. I mean, the bottom line is that congressional committees are set up based on seniority. People want to have control over what they have control over. Let's put this in the context of the Republican caucus, which is fighting amongst itself on foreign policy. For a decade, John McCain and the Hawks and the neocons had control of GOP foreign policy. Over the last 2 years, that's been contested. And Mitt Romney started out as a neocon, ended up as a moderate on foreign policy. And now the caucus is more on that side. So John McCain is fighting for relevance here. He's fighting not to be marginalized in his own party. He's about to lose his own committee chairmanship. He terms out on Senate Armed Services.
That's right.
So his friends John Kyle, Joe Lieberman are both leaving. So he's seeing his relative power inside the caucus on foreign policy challenged for the first time in a very long time. And he's fighting for the survival of that power. And that plays into everything that we're seeing.
And the more he swears on camera, the more you can tell he's feeling that. Josh, could you stay with us for just a moment? This afternoon, I sat down with House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi, and she had something very interesting to say about the connection of the David Petraeus scandal to some of these other issues. I'd love to get your response to it. Hold on. All right, hold on. We'll be right back.
What is triggered about informing the Congress, in any event, just talking about Congress, does it have an impact on our national security?
And you think this did not rise to that level?